Hey, I'm Brian.
I'm Kaylene.
And welcome to our next episode of Growing Veggies in Pots. It's episode 4, and we're talking about how to grow seedlings like this from seed. And we're going to show you step by step how to do it. Now, growing from seeds can be a little bit tricky, and I know that some of our customers have said they've tried it before and it just failed. It was a dismal failure. Look, we're going to show you the tips and tricks today that the nurserymen use to grow punnets of seedlings like this that are nice and healthy, and you can do the same thing at home. But it does require a lot of TLC care for the little seedlings, because they're like little babies, aren't they?
Well and truly.
And if you think about the cost, like a seedling punnet like this costs you $6 or $7 to buy, and there's another $6 or $7. It adds up very quickly. And when you're growing in pots, you don't need this many plants. You might only want to put 3 or 4 plants in for that pot size. And so you end up wasting a lot as well. So we're going to show you how to minimize wastage by growing the right amount of seeds and seedlings for your pots. Now, the first big key is to use something called a
propagator.
Propagator, that's right. And what is it? What is it essentially?
It is this. It's a little house that you can grow your little seeds in that keeps them warm, keeps the moisture in, and protects them as they germinate.
That's because they're very tender when they're very small. So we've got to give them optimum conditions. Now, this is our small 13-cell propagator that we sell as a kit for growing veggies in pots. So you'll be able to see that on the web page as part of our nursery kit for growing in pots. We also have a large propagator as well. We'll just show you this one here. If you want to lift that up, it's got everything inside it. So this is our large veggie nursery kit with all the items inside, and that's a big propagator that has a similar thing. It has trays inside for growing seedlings. So you can choose which one of those you'd like. Now, there's different options when you get the nursery kits, I should say, is that you can choose to get it with a Veggie Sowing Planner. Now, I highly recommend, if you don't already own this, you need to get this with your kit, because it tells you all year what seeds to sow, in what month, how deep to sow them, how long they take till harvest, and all that details all in this one easy to see laminated A3 poster. You'll also get options that will say, what seed pack would you like? And you can get a top 14 seeds for pots is the one I recommend. So we've picked out vegetable varieties that have generally more compact growing habit that are going to be ideal for growing in the Geofelt planters. So if we have a look at this and pull out some of the other things that are in the kit.
Okay, so this is the seeds. So it's a 14 pack of the seeds.
So you'll see all your seeds there.
And then you have the all-important labels, so you know what you've actually planted.
That's very important.
Especially if you're starting out, because you won't recognise what plants are what. This is our little seed dispenser, which helps you not end up putting a whole ton of seeds into each cell.
Sometimes the seeds are very fiddly to work with, and if your fingers aren't as nimble, it can work well to use a seed dispenser.
And then inside there we've also got the bottle tops, which are fabulous. And they go, you just screw them onto your old soft drink bottle or mineral water bottle, and that just gives a really soft watering of your seedlings, so you're not damaging them at all in their growing process. And of course, some beautiful gloves, need those. Fertilizer once they get going. Scoop to help you get the soil in without getting your hands too messy. Some more fertilizer. This is more to get you started. So liquid fertilizer is great.
So this one here is actually a seaweed tonic, but you might find, because this one's being discontinued, so if you find that we're swapped over to the Harvest product, it's very similar. And so this is great for feeding seedlings to keep them healthy and happy. You probably do it at about a half strength though for that.
Yep. And you've got your Vermiculite, which we'll show you what the purpose of that is in a minute.
Yep.
You've got your soil, of course, which you'll need. And then the bottom bit is your tray with your cells. And then you've got 6 cells in here. So you can You might only want to use 12, you may want to use the whole lot. It just depends how many you want to get going, but there's enough to fit plenty in there to get your seeds growing in there.
Okay, so that's our large propagator, and this is our smaller propagator. So you can choose which one is right for you. I would suggest for most people, if you're growing veggies in pots, go for this package where you're getting the smaller propagators here.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna first do is we're gonna add some soil into here, and we're going to use a specially made soil, which is a seedling mixed soil, and generally means that it's very fine soil because you don't want to have coarse bits when you're growing from seed or from cuttings. So we might just set that up and we'll start putting some soil into here. Maybe while you're doing that, Kaylene, I'll just show some of the ones that are already growing over here.
Sure.
So here we've got one of the circular propagators here, and you can see all the different seedlings, and we've mixed it up. We've got silver beet around the edge here. There's different types of lettuce. I've got tomato over here. So you can grow a range of different things in the one little propagator. And then the larger propagator cells, you can see here I've planted tomatoes. All 6 cells are just tomatoes in there.
So you can tap it down just to make, because you don't want to compress it too much, but a good tap does, and I will use your scoop now just to put a little bit more in.
Now it's important that you don't press down the soil. It's very tempting to do that, to push your fingers into it and compact it, but that makes it harder for the roots to get out from that little tiny seed.
Yeah.
So we've got it filled up with soil now. We might do a couple of those. And I guess the next question is we've got to decide, what do we plant now? And so we can't just go, well, I want to plant corn, but it might not be the right time for planting corn.
Yeah.
So that's when we have to use the Veggie Sowing Planner to sort that out.
And you've got to check for your area too. So you need to know whether, we've got a little map of Australia out there so you can figure out by the colour what area you're in, and then you can go down and have a look. But we've simplified it a little. Where's our seeds gone, Brian?
Over here?
Because we've got all the main common ones that you've got in there that are all the favourites that people love to have that you're going to use, because you don't want to plant something that you're not likely to use. So
that's right.
Yeah.
So what Kaylene was saying is we look at the map at the top here. So we'll bring the camera in closer and we can have a little look there. So we've got 4 main climate zones over here. So we live in Sydney, and so we're in the temperate zone, which is marked green on the map. And then if you lived, for example, in a mountainous area, you'd probably be in a cool area. If you lived up in Brisbane, you'd probably be in subtropical. And if you lived up further than that, you'd be in tropical. And so you need to then refer to the table. And if we have a look over to here, and we look at capsicum here, we can see if I'm in temperate, so I'm in green. So I'm only going to refer to the row that's in green there. And it tells me that I can sow capsicum in August, September, October, November, and December. Now the plants will continue growing longer than that, and it's important to note that this graph is only telling you when to sow. And there's another feature on the map, on the plan here, is it tells you the harvest days. So for example, with capsicum, it says that the harvest days is 70 to 110 days. And so that's how long it's going to take from when you first sow the seed to when you're actually harvesting the fruit. And so just remember that when you're looking at the table there, that this is only relating to when you sow things. So let's have a look at our envelope here that has our seeds, and we'll refer to the map and we'll work out which ones we can sow.
Beetroot, I like beetroot.
Okay, so beetroot. So then we go to the planner and we look up beetroot on the planner and we decide, is beetroot going to be able to be planted at the moment? And beetroot is in the section over here at the bottom right, down here. And it says that beetroot for my area, which is in temperate, I can sow beetroot in July, August, September. I can sow it in all the months except May and June. And so that means it's safe for us to sow beetroot right now. So that's a good one for us to do.
Good.
Okay.
Happy about that
So
one.
you just follow that step. We'll have a look in the close-up camera so you can see what I was looking at here. So you can see that I'm the green, and so it's telling me that I can sow beetroot in all the months except for May and June.
Alrighty.
So I highly recommend getting the planner to make that easier.
So do you want to sow some of these ones?
Yes. So
the beetroot is a bigger seed. So it's a little easier to do. Do we want to use this seed thing or just?
No, just use your hands. I
Because
think
these are quite large compared to most other seeds.
Something interesting is that when you open the pack of beetroot and you open the pack of silver beet, you'll actually find the seeds look almost identical, and there's a reason for that, is that they're actually related to each other. So even though in Australia we use silver beet a lot for cooking as a substitute for spinach, it's not actually related to spinach, it's related to beetroot. So you'll find those seeds match.
So we're going to do all these beetroot, Brian?
No, we'll just do maybe 5 beetroots.
2, 3, 4, 5. Beautiful. You can pop them in there now that you've got them.
And then we're going to pop these in. So we'll come in close for the camera and have a look. And we're dropping them into the hole. It's okay if you put more than one into a hole. Like some of these are a bit small, so I might put 2 of those in because you might find that one of them doesn't germinate. Now it's important that you start labeling straight away.
Yes.
Because otherwise you won't know what you've got. Now,
yes.
A funny little thing with the labels.
Yes.
We discovered afterwards that the labels are too tall for the lid to go on. But the simple solution is just grab the pair of scissors and just trim about 1 centimetre off the top. Very simple to do.
Voila. But you need to write on it first. So
yes.
We're going to write on it beetroot.
So keep in mind that different seeds germinate at different rates. So you'll have some that'll come up very quickly, and you'll have others that'll take maybe a week or so longer before they'll actually germinate. But there are some little tricks you can do to speed that process up.
I have no idea what the date is.
That's
so
okay,
I'm going
the
to
viewers don't know
it.
the date either.
Beautiful.
Okay, so we've labelled this. Now, if you're doing a whole lot of different things in here, you might want to put some extra labels in to say which ones you've actually done, but we're not going to do that today. And we're going to do another group over here. So how about we look at maybe some lettuce?
Lettuce. Gotta find the lettuce. Here we go.
Now the type of lettuce that we're growing is a loose leaf lettuce, which we mentioned also in episode 1. The advantage of this type of lettuce is that you can keep picking leaves off it continually rather than harvesting a whole lettuce and starting again.
Okay, so these are a little bit tinier, so we might
That's right, so you might use the dispenser for this one, I think. This is actually quite a relaxing thing to do. See if you can get your kids involved as well. It's great for them to be able to actually see the little plants sprouting up. We'll show a shot in a minute of some seeds that we planted last week.
Okay, so this is the little seed dispenser, and on it, it's got numbers from 0 all the way up to 5. So obviously 0 is shut, but then you're going to go up to 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or 5. I've just had a quick little look. The number 1 is very, very tiny, so I think we're going to go to number 2, but we're going to pop those in first.
Yeah, so let's bring the camera in close and we can have a look in there. So we're just going to pour some seed into here, because it is very small. So what Kaylene was referring to is there's different little holes on the seed dispenser that are numbered here in different sizes. And so you just dial it to the one that's approximate size for that size seed.
Yeah. So I've just popped it on 2. And how deep do we have to plant these ones, Brian?
Well, we can have a look on the bag. Let's have a look on here as well, because we needed to refer to this to find out if it's the right time of year for sowing lettuce. Now, lettuce is going to be in our nitrogen lovers group, and that's over here. So it tells me that I can grow lettuce all year long. Every month of the year I can sow lettuce. So I think we're safe with that one.
We are safe.
So on here it's going to tell me that our depth is about 5 millimeters we're planting it.
All right, I reckon we'll I did that too deep. Whatever.
So about 0.5 centimetre. Doesn't have to be exact.
No, just not too deep for this one. Just a little hole. And I'm going to do all of those.
Okay, we're going to do all of them.
Yeah, I like my lettuce. You go through lettuce. Everybody
knows true that in one of the Geofelt planters, you can plant a lot of lettuce in there in a circle around the edge. Oop. So it is worthwhile doing that.
I'm just going to push you in there.
Now in the nurseries, they have automated machines that do all this. I remember seeing it, and it's fantastic to watch. And so I think they use little air guns to actually fire seeds into the holes, and it all happens really quickly.
Good.
All right, so we've planted our lettuce in there. And so now, do we fill it in with soil? No, we're not going to do that, because this is one of the tricks the nurseries use. They don't use soil to cover the seeds. They use another product called Vermiculite. And you may have seen this when you've gone to nurseries and you bought seedlings. You'll see that kind of shiny kind of material that's on top of the soil there. So that's Vermiculite. And the magic of Vermiculite, it's from an expanded rock, is that it retains moisture really well. And so when you water the seedlings, it keeps the surface of the soil very moist, which says to the seed, this is a safe environment for you to germinate in. So we're going to sprinkle that on top. That's all right. Yeah, you can smooth it across there. And don't forget to label your lettuce as well.
I forgot
and then once we've put those seeds in, we're going to need to water them. So remember the bottle top sprinklers there. We're going to need a bottle or a mineral water bottle or something like that to be able to attach it to be able to water these seedlings. So then continue to use this. If it does need topping up, use a nice gentle watering again, because you don't want to disturb the surface because the little plants are coming through. Now let's have a look at one that we planted last week, and you can see the tiny plants that are starting to sprout out. So you can see all these little seedlings sprouting here. Now, something to point out, you can see some of these ones here have got little brown leaves and they look a bit shriveled. Now, this is an example of where you've got to really be careful when you're growing the seedlings, because we've had quite mild weather lately and I thought it would be okay. But we had a day where it was a bit warmer, and because the lid kind of, makes the heat more intense in there, we ended up getting some burning of these seedlings. Now they'll probably come good because that's only their first two leaves. It's not their real leaves, so they should sprout from that. That's like a work of art there, Kay.
I'm just trying to remember which ones I put which in.
Generally what's going to happen is the seeds are going to come, the plants are going to come up, I should say, and you'll be able to tell by the leaves which is one type and which is another type. But it does get a bit confusing if you've planted maybe 5 or so different vegetables in there. Look, the nurseries get it wrong as well. We've had a number of customers in our community post photos where they say, I bought Brussels sprouts and I've actually got some other totally different plant that's actually been growing. So sometimes you get little bonuses like that.
You do.
So then we put the lid on. Now the propagators have air vents in the top, this black dial here. And so you just turn the dial. So what you do is, if you see there's a lot of condensation in there and it's been quite warm weather, open the vents to let some of that moisture out. If it's a cold day, close the vents or half close the vents. So just keep an eye on that. And
another really good tip, are we allowed to mention this yet?
The heat mat. Love. Yes.
I used this recently. I did my fiddle fig was getting too tall and I wanted it to branch out. So I chopped it off, which was a bit harsh, but I'm like, I don't want to waste these. So I made some cuttings and I used the heat mat and it was brilliant.
And to show how dedicated gardeners we are, this is in our bedroom that the heat mat and the cuttings are growing.
I'm looking after it.
They're doing really well.
It is doing really well.
So what Kaylene's mentioning here is a heat mat, and this is a kind of an optional extra. It is really good if you're in a cold area, because seeds need the soil to be warm enough temperature that they will actually feel safe to germinate. But I found that when I put the heat mat under these, the germination process is certainly sped up. So you'll start to see germination happening in a matter of maybe 4 or 5 days, as compared to 7 to 10 days without it, or longer.
And it really encourages the roots to grow.
That's right.
It's not, the heat's underneath, so it's encouraging the roots to come down rather than getting growth happening as such.
That's right. Yeah. And it's only a very gentle heat, so I would describe it as about the temperature of a warm drink to hold. It's just a gentle heat that provides enough warmth in the soil that makes them happy. All right. So you can get the heat mats on our website. They don't come as part of the kit, but you can get them as an optional extra. You'll see the link there. So let's have a look now at one that's already been growing and work out if they're ready to actually start planting out into the beds.
Can I ask a question? Because I know people are going to ask this.
Definitely.
You've planted it, you've watered it. When do we give it the liquid fertilizer?
Well, we can't give it any liquid fertilizer until we start to see plants growing in there.
There you go, people.
Okay.
Wait until you see some leaves happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when the plant's, maybe 5 centimeters tall, then you could start doing a liquid fertilizer maybe each week. Just remember it at a half strength for that. And it is good to keep giving it to them once you've planted them out as well.
Yes.
All right. So here is some tomatoes. And if we have a look, this is the cells down the bottom, and this is from our large propagator kit, but it's the same principle. And the advantage with these is the base is clear, and so we can see what's happening in there.
That's a great advantage because, so many times, like, the ones you buy from the shops, you can't tell whether the roots are really established yet. And sometimes you open it up and there's hardly any roots.
Yeah, they can be very weak.
Yes.
So if we bring the close-up camera in and have a look, you'll see that the roots are quite visible here around the edge. I'll grab another one and show you.
That one's good, and the other one in the back corner is really good.
So we've got some beans here. They're growing really well.
Yeah.
And some zucchini.
Wow, they're growing really well.
So we know those are ready to transplant out into the garden because they've got good strong roots, and they'll be able to be grabbed and pulled out of the cell and then planted into the Geofelt planter. Yep. So those are good to go. Now, sometimes you won't get as strong a root growth. You just have to be really gentle when you're planting things out because that tiny seedling is very susceptible to damage. Keep in mind that snails and slugs love to eat the seedlings, so you may need to protect them from that. Preferably using a pest-free cover will stop most of that, or otherwise using a beer trap like we mentioned in the previous episode, or snail baits. But be mindful of the snail bait because it can harm other animals as well. All right, now we've got all our things out, so don't forget we've got the kits. I think we should take some of these over to the Geofelt plant and we'll plant them up.
Sounds good. Okay, before we get started on planting the seedlings, I just wanted to show you one of our cool Aussie Gardener products, which is a kneeling pad. So it's just covered in canvas, good little handle so you can hang it to dry out once it's got all muddy and wet. But I'm going to use it now to kneel on. So off you go, Brian.
That's right. I'm using a bale of mulch to sit on. We must be getting old. We're starting to look for our creature comforts, aren't we?
Yeah.
So in this planter here, we're going to make a bit of a salad mix here. So we've got our seedlings that have been growing in the propagator. To get those out, you just push the bottom of the tray so it kind of pops out a little bit there, so you can get your fingernail underneath the edge and then take it out. And if we have a look at that, you can probably see that. Look, the roots are starting to come out the bottom there. You see we've got nice good root growth around, so these are definitely ready to plant out, and the plants on the top are looking nice and strong as well. So I'm going to grab those. Now the process you do is you just squeeze the bottom a little bit. So you just squeeze it a little bit like this, just very gently to make it loose. And then you should find that if you pull on the plant, that the whole plug will come out easily like that. So this is a loose leaf lettuce. That's a tongue twister.
That is.
A loose leaf lettuce. We planted some of these, I think, in episode 1. So we're going to put that around the edge here. And we'll grab a few more of those. Now I think we could even plant a silver beet in the middle of here. The silver beet grows a bit taller and quite a vigorous grower. That one's not coming out quite as nicely. It'll be okay, we'll pull it out. There we go. We'll try and keep the root ball intact. So we'll put our silver beet here, because it's a bit taller, and we'll put our lettuce around the edge there.
Making sure that you're not overplanting, because you don't want leafy greens will get your black spots, so you don't want to get the black spots. So you want to make sure you've got lots of airflow happening between all the plants.
Yeah, but do keep in mind that because you're growing them in the Geofelt planter, which is in a circle, you're generally going to have good airflow around these anyway. Now what have you got happening over there in that bag?
Well, there is some zucchini there, but I'm not planting those today. I'm just going to plant some corn. So corn you can plant straight into your beds. So I'm only going to put about 4 seeds. Because as you can see, corn, everybody knows what corn looks like. They're looking a bit odd here though,
They're
Brian.
Why they get treated. So corn gets treated because I think the corn is actually imported. And so I think it's a thiram is what they use, which is very common. It's a fungicide they use on seeds. So, and they'll usually have warnings on the packet, don't eat the seeds, which I don't think you'd want to do that anyway, but they just put that warning on there anyway.
Yes. So I'm only going to plant 4 because I don't want to overcrowd this. So we're just going to put You don't even really need to. It's only 20 mils deep, so it's not very deep at all.
So how did you know that you could plant that directly into the bag?
Oh, because you look at our sowing planner, guys, and you look up corn and it says whether it can be in trays or beds. So corn is one that you can do directly into beds. So this is our bed at the moment.
It's important to plant corn in groups because it needs that to be able to germinate the flowers. So you need to have the wind blowing around and that's why they plant large fields of corn. So don't ever plant one corn, always be putting them in a cluster there. So 4 or 5 in one of these planter bags is ideal. Now, we should give these a water, and This is a great time for us to use either the seaweed solution or the harvest. And so that's very easy to do. We've just got our prehistoric watering can here. And as a general guide, the lids on these units here is a measuring device. And so normally you would put a full capful into about a 9-litre watering can. But remember we said to put it at half strength, so we're just going to put about half a cap.
And then always make sure you shake it first too. So it's just half.
Yeah.
Smells good.
Pour that in. Now the best practice is to pour it into an empty watering can and then add the water in later. So to compensate, I'm just going to give it a squirt and hopefully not squirt us, just to stir it up a bit. And so now we can give these seedlings a nice dose of the Amgrow of the harvest or the seaweed solution there. Make sure when you first water them, you really water them in well.
That's because the soil's already all dry. And if the whole soil's dry, it's going to take all the moisture out of the plants. So you need to get the soil nice and wet.
So once we've done that watering, as we showed in episode 2, then we use the Octa spray irrigation, which we insert into the middle. I haven't got it connected at the moment, but we would then just adjust that. It will hit the silver beet that's growing there, but it's generally okay. It'll still reach its way around the bag. At worst, you could add an extra Octa spray if you found that, say, the lettuce over here wasn't getting watered well. Now, there's another thing that we can add to the top of the surface of the soil, and that is mulch. And it can be great for doing a couple of things, and that is to stop weeds growing and to also hold the moisture into the soil. Now, in this case, when we're using the pest-free covers, we don't actually have any weeds because the seeds can't blow into the pots anymore. So that's another bonus of using the pest-free covers, is you don't have to do constant weeding. But we do still have evaporation loss during summer. Now in winter, it's probably not necessary to use mulch, and sometimes it can be not beneficial to do so because it just is too moist, the ground. But we're coming into summer as we're filming this, and so it's a great idea for us to add mulch. Now the most common mulch that you'll see being sold at the hardware stores and nurseries is going to be your sugarcane mulch. And it's a good product because it's a byproduct of the sugar industry, so it's a waste product, so it's great that it's being used. There is a little bit of a problem with it though, is that when you add it to the soil, there's a thing called nitrogen drawdown. And so what happens is as soon as this is reaching the soil, it's starting to kind of break down when it gets watered and so on. And part of that breakdown process is it needs nitrogen to be able to do that breakdown. So it sucks it out of the soil. And you may find that when you add this mulch to gardens, that the plants look a bit pale in the weeks that follow.
Got a bit yellow.
Yeah, and so what you need to do is add some nitrogen to the surface of the soil so that this mulch has something to draw on that's not going to take it away from the plants. Just the Amgrow Naturals, we might show a close-up of that in the camera, Amgrow Naturals product that's in pellets, and then we just sprinkle that onto the surface, and then we add the mulch on top. And we just put the mulch then gently around the plants.
So being careful not to bury the actual plant, but you want it thick everywhere else to keep those weeds down. And you've also got a few more, one that you're sitting on, Brian, and one that's
right.
behind you.
So there's different types of mulch that you can get as well. And I mentioned about the nitrogen drawdown with this one. Well, there's another mulch that actually does the opposite, and it's probably the best mulch, but it generally costs a bit more and it's not that common. And it's the one I'm sitting on. It's a great chair as well. And that is Lucerne Mulch. Oh, it's heavy. So Lucerne Mulch, and they love feeding this to horses. Now, the advantage of Lucerne Mulch is it actually adds nitrogen back into the soil. So it does a bit of magic there. So it's kind of probably the best mulch to be using, but again, it will cost more than the sugarcane mulch, but it looks very similar. Usually it's just slightly greener. And then behind me, I've also got just a bag of pine bark mulch or wood chip mulch. You could also use this as well. It's kind of a combination of bark strips, possibly some leaves as well. I don't generally use this on the veggie patch though, because it's a bit chunky. And when you finish growing a crop, you want to be able to dig the soil over, and anything that's on the surface is going to be dug into that soil. So you don't want big chunks of bark when you're growing vegetables in the next crop further on. So that's why we generally use a mulch that will break down over time, and it's a good one that we can dig back into the soil to add more nutrients to the soil.
Yeah, especially when you're growing like your root vegetables. You don't want anything to stop those, especially carrots, stopping them from, you know, not being nice straight carrots.
That's right, because the key to growing carrots is you don't plant them in the trays, the propagators. You sow the seeds straight into the beds here, or we call this the bed, the pot. And you want the soil to be nice and soft like we've shown here, that's in the Geofelt planters. Now you need to water yours.
I do, but not with what you just did.
That's right, you're just going to use the hose.
Okay.
It's just there. So we're not going to use the sea sole or the seaweed or the Amgrow harvest on this yet because they haven't sprouted, so we're just going to water them.
What are we on?
Now you should find that in about maybe a week to 2 weeks, you'll have corn that will be sprouting up here, little shoots sprouting up. Sometimes it's good to sow a couple of corn seeds because you might find that one of them doesn't germinate as well when you're doing each hole. And then we'll give this a bit more of a water as well, just because we've added the mulch onto here and it's a bit dry. We don't want these to dry out as well. And then we're going to cover it over, of course, with the pest-free cover, which is going to provide a little bit of sun protection. And as I mentioned before, you can add some shade cloth to that cover if it's in a hot spot and you're worried about your seedlings drying out.
Cool.
So do you want to give these a little bit more of a water?
You haven't finished mulching.
She wants me to tidy up. Finish the job, she says.
Exactly. Always add in, finish the job. Clean up after yourself, Brian.
Too much truth comes out in these videos.
Make sure you don't bury them.
Now this is probably the last time that you'll need to actually use the hose to water them. After that, you can just rely on the Octa sprays and the automated irrigation if you've got that set up as well. If not, go back to watch episode 2, which teaches you exactly how to do that. Now I'm hoping that after watching that, you're feeling a bit more confident about growing your own seedlings direct from seed. Remember to get the planner, it's going to guide you all year. I recommend getting one of our Veggie nursery kits to make it easy because you get all the different things you need all in one easy to go kit, and you can keep reusing it over and over again. You can, when you run out of soil, you can buy more soil from us, but you can keep using the propagators to keep growing seedlings for the future. Yeah. Now, on the planner, there's another part that I haven't really talked about today, and that's called crop rotation. I won't go into it in too much detail. In fact, if you look up our other veggie classes that are for the main gardens, the larger veggie gardens, I go into a lot of detail to explain how this all works. But essentially, you have plants that have different nitrogen requirements. That's the main kind of fertilizer that produces all the leaves. And so what we've done is we've grouped it and said that group 2 is the nitrogen lovers. So all these ones here that are grouped together, they love lots of fertilizer essentially. And then this group over here, group 3, is the nitrogen in moderation. And generally that's going to be your fruiting vegetables. Because what happens is if you give them too much nitrogen, they put all their energy into producing leaves instead of producing the actual fruits. And then the last group here is the nitrogen not helpful. And that's the group of vegetables that are generally your root vegetables. And we want them to produce roots like carrots, radishes, but we don't want them to produce overly too much in leaf growth. And so this one here actually needs basically no nitrogen or very little nitrogen. So if you wanted to try crop rotation, the way it works is you start off by adding nitrogen to the Geofelt planter, if we're doing it in pots, and that would be in the form usually of manure pellets, or you could use a fertilizer like Vermiculite, which has nitrogen into it. You would then grow a plant from this section here that likes lots of nitrogen. When it has finished growing, then you'll use the same bag for growing a plant that needs moderation of nitrogen. And then when that's finished growing, you take that one out and you're going to plant a root vegetable or group 4 that needs hardly any nitrogen. And then you're going to start the process again and actually either arrest the bag, so just leave it for a few months with nothing in it, or adding more compost, adding more nitrogen to it, and then starting the process again. So I encourage you to watch one of our other videos if you want to understand that a bit more, but that's just why the vegetables are grouped like this on this particular chart. And if you've got any other questions about seed growing as you're doing this, join our online community. So the AussieGardenerCommunity.com.au. Check that out. It's free to join up. You can ask questions. You can post photos as you progress. So you'll find other people in there are posting photos of their propagators and their seedlings growing. And you'll have lots of happy gardeners on there offering all their advice to make sure that you're a success with that. And of course, we're available for you as well. Kaylene and I pop into the community as well and try to answer those questions too. You'll find all these products on the Aussie Gardener website. Open a chat request on the website if you're having trouble finding something. We're happy to help. Or of course, give us a call, 1-800-222-800. And Mark, who mans the phones, will be happy to help you. So give it a go. Get yourselves a kit, start growing your own vegetables from seed, take lots of care with them. Remember, they're little babies, and you'll have the satisfaction of growing your own plants. Now, in the next episodes, we're going to be talking all about harvesting, but we're also going to be talking about what else you can grow in the Geofelt planters. And so I'm looking forward to teaching that one as well. So thank you for joining in. Keep following along, keep growing, and we'll see you next time.